days, from the darkest nights, from the sunny days. I hope you learn something. I hope you learn something. I hope you learn something from the stormy seas, from the brightest days, from the darkest nights, from the sunny days. Darkest nights, from the sunny
Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome to a special edition of the All Hat No Kettle News Rodeo. I'm your host, Hat. Welcome all you lovely people on YouTube. I haven't seen this many people on YouTube at once on this channel in honestly at least 2 years. It's really heartening to see everyone here it's just really me playing the Arizona Senate, going after the election. And let's all get this right out of the way. Let's let YouTube hear us loud and clear. Yes, there may have been some chicanery, but we all know that our dearest President Biden, 46 with an asterisk, did in fact get more popular votes than any other presidential candidate in U.S. history, and therefore is rightfully president. Right? You hear that, YouTube? Out of the way. Honk, honk. So, what I've done is I've got Fox News Now pulled up, waiting for the timer to click off. The hearing is due to start at the top of the hour, so I'm going to wait for it to kick in. I'll check on it from time to time. In the meantime, I've got a couple stories pulled up, a la News Rodeo, and we'll get into them as we go along. First off, some interesting news came out earlier today. This is from the Washington Examiner, written by Daniel Chaitin, or is it Chitin? I really don't know. But there's a Michigan attorney who's claiming there is, quote, explosive evidence about the Antrim County 2020 election brouhaha. And he's got some things to say that I can't read aloud on YouTube. But, hello, Electric Dog. Yeah, the Hatters are late. The Mad Hatters are late indeed. But I can read this part. Matthew DePerno and his client, Antrim County resident William Bailey, held an event with supporters on Monday, one day before Antrim County Circuit Judge Kevin Elsenheimer is expected to decide whether to dismiss the case in which Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson has intervened and defended the integrity of the election. Again, we all know the election was above board. Nothing happened. Continuing, the attorney insisted that forensic images, which follow a judge's approved forensic audit of the Antrim County election results, voting machines, and software in December, asserted there were multiple ways there could have been issues with ballot tabulation and called on state legislators to conduct a statewide audit of the election. I can't read any more from there. I'll violate YouTube's terms, but it is something. Basically, folks, it ain't over yet. It ain't over yet. There's a lot going on. I live here in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Yes, that Kenosha, Wisconsin. And you may have seen in the news just yesterday that, or was it Monday? I forget now. Today's Wednesday, right? Or is it Tuesday? I have no memory at all, y'all. Tuesday, okay. My watch has a day date, but it's almost 3 o'clock our time, so the hand's right across the day. But yesterday it was. That Wisconsin is about to start a statewide election audit. It was approved about, I think, 3 months ago by the Wisconsin legislature, which is Republican-run, but it's taken this long to come around to it. I don't know if they were getting their ducks in a row or just what, but it's about to happen. Blurry picture on YouTube, you say. Yeah, I see it. Interesting. My connection's good. That's really weird. That's never happened before. Yeah, I'm not dropping one frame at all according to OBS. Let's you know what? Let's refresh YouTube, y'all. Let's just refresh YouTube. See what happens there. Everybody refresh it. Let's see here. Let it come up. Nope, it's still bad. That's a YouTube thing, y'all. Cause I'm let me double check my other streams real quickly, cause let's see, Trovo. Oh, that didn't go out. Let's see here. Trovo is nope, Trovo's just fine. And let me look at DLive. Yeah, DLive's just fine. It's let's see if it clears up in a little bit. If it doesn't, I'll, what time is it? Give it another minute, and if it doesn't clear up, I will stop and restart the YouTube stream. So don't go anywhere. Do not go anywhere. I'll tell you that right now. but yeah, if it doesn't clear up, I'll, what is that? Oh, it shifted my logo. My subscriber logo. It shifted the picture. I don't think there's anything I can do about that. That's in the editing studio. Yeah, there's nothing I can do about that. I have to completely remove that. All right, I'm gonna stop and restart YouTube, y'all. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Oh, John Glebney says his picture is clear. Okay. Yeah, let's go ahead and leave it, y'all. It's just me. Nothing to see there. We're looking to talk to we're looking for the Arizona State Senate. Don't worry about me. I'd hate to cancel the collection and lose all you great people. So let's just go ahead and we'll do what we can. I do thank you for putting it out, though. Yes, and of course, John Glebney says perfectly. Tony Evers is a weirdo. Not only a weirdo, he has blood on his hands. Let's face it. There would be two people still alive in Kenosha, and one guy would still have a bicep if Evers had sent in the guard when he had the first opportunity. But instead, he and our mayor decided to fan the flames, and without any evidence whatsoever, declared the Jacob Blake shooting a racial hate crime, another incident of a white cop trying to kill an unarmed black man. And then, of course, we see the video, and it turns out that Blake had a knife almost the entire time and was trying to steal a vehicle with 3 young children in it and lead police on a felony pursuit after wrestling with officers, taking 2 of them to the ground, shrugging off 2 tasers after violating a restraining order on someone with whom he had a previous warrant for sexual assault. And that woman called the cops. That's why they were there. But it was all the white people's fault. And so for that reason, Kenosha burned for 3 days. And Laura, good to see you, Laura. As always, good to see you. John, you're just north of me. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I hope I got all that in there. Hope I got all that in there. That's I do try to keep the details as clear as possible. So anyway, so we've got some goings on in Michigan still, and don't forget there's other states out there who are having issues. Put it that way. Okay, so that segues perfectly into my next story, which is regarding the Andrew Brown shooting out of North Carolina. You remember there was a very famous shooting. There was a felony warrant being issued on Andrew Brown Jr. for drug charges, and according to officers, he tried to run them over with his car and then flee after attacking them. And they fired at the car, and he died. He had a single gunshot wound to the back of the head. The car rolled to a stop, and no aid was able to be rendered because he took an instantly fatal wound. So of course there was rioting and destruction and all that because another incident of white cops hunting down unarmed black men, and so completely obviating the fact that a car is a deadly weapon. But I got this article here from Fox News, just published with an update just an hour ago, that the North Carolina DA has issued a ruling that the shooting was justified. He labels it as tragic, which it is. Any death before 70 or however many years your God has allotted you, any death before that is tragic. I don't care who you are. I don't care what the circumstances are. You are somebody. And when you die, that hurts somebody else. So I have that feeling. It's part of my belief. But the DA also says that no officers will be charged in connection with Brown Jr.'s death. I can't show you the footage. I don't do riot porn, and I don't do a lot of police shooting footage. But basically what you see, and you can go to foxnews.com and find this article easily. But what you see is the officers are rolling up to do oh, here we go. We're on. Okay, no sound just yet. But I'll leave it here. The officers are doing a felony warrant serve. They roll up in a vehicle, several of them. It looks like the bed of maybe a tactical truck or a pickup truck. They're all tacticaled out. And as they get there, Brown Jr. has gotten into what looks like a late model BMW and has started the car and starts to try to run them over. They all bring up their firearms, and then Brown tries to drive through them, and then the shooting starts, and the car continues for a ways and then rolls to a stop. Looks like across a yard, and so that it went down really within seconds. There was no audio of the shooting, so I can't give you a round count, but obviously there was one enough. And again, it's unfortunate that Brown Jr. died, but it was ruled that he tried to run those officers over. Why am I not hearing this woman? Oh, she's on the phone. Okay, so she's not ready to start yet. Maybe she's on the phone with tech support wondering why her mic isn't working. Victoria Monroe says in the YouTube chat, we need to start seeing the bad people arrested and stop seeing the good guys being arrested or harassed. I couldn't agree more. It has gotten very bad, and it's a shame that it is so easy to be arrested for trying to just do your constitutional rights, and it's been happening for over a year now. Look at all the people in Michigan who had their businesses destroyed and their licenses revoked just for showing up at a protest. all the people in California who were arrested for violating stay-at-home orders and mask mandates. I'll never forget the video of the waveboarder, the paddleboarder, who was out alone off the beach. No one was anywhere around, but he was outdoors. He wasn't wearing a mask. The cops had him come into shore and they arrested him. That's what's been happening for over a year now, and it is scary. It is absolutely scary. And then you have what's been happening in Portland and Seattle every night almost, and it looks like none of those people are going to see any serious jail time. The federal district attorney's office has written something like 80% of those cases off. Just we're not gonna prosecute these, and the reason is there's too many of them. We don't have the resources to handle all these cases. Honestly, that is their motive. They have, you know why they don't have the resources? Because they put all of the money and all the people into D.C. to ring up all of the people who walked into the Capitol after Capitol Police said, it's okay, you can come in. I'm not saying there weren't people who did bad things. There were. And people who assaulted officers and things like that, they've been charged. They'll get a fair trial, and we'll see what happens. But there are many, many, many more people who just were part of the crowd, and it's like, oh, the doors are open, we'll walk in. And now they're looking at felony charges for trespassing and interfering with an official proceeding. Now, you may have seen the video that just came out of the Capitol Police discussing entry into the rotunda with the initial wave of protesters, including the QAnon shaman. And the officers are basically saying, you guys can come in, but you've got to be peaceful. You've got to keep it quiet. And they let them in. And now all these guys are in jail. They're in jail. All in D.C., by the way. Every one of those cases, they were extradited to D.C. And many of them are in solitary or other types of constricted confinement, completely obviating many of their constitutional rights. But that is the worst thing that's ever happened to America, not the $2 billion worth of insurance claims, not actual damage, just insurance claims that we've seen over the last year. John Glebney says sorry, my mind doesn't work here right now. I got very little sleep last night. In the YouTube chat, that the guy who put his feet on Pelosi's desk got 7 years. Yeah, where's the justice in that? Where's the justice in that? Yeah, John also says that the talk of indictments for Trump out of SDNY. I'm not going to guess as to whether or not that's going to happen, but I don't think they're going to go very far. I think that the Trump legal team has a fairly solid case for this being malicious prosecution. None of the things that he's been accused of, publicly at least, were anything that no other developer in New York City has ever done. Now, if they're talking about inflating
all right, guys,
property
just wanted
value.
to let you know we are working on getting that special hearing, again, coming to us out of Arizona, as we do have still conducting 2020.
All right, so we'll wait for that to come up. Obviously, they're having some technical difficulties. Dog says in the DLF chat, Shaman guy is a moron. I would go with that. I would go with that. He is certainly out there, that's for sure. I would at least put that on there. But let's see. But so 7 years. Yeah, 7 years. That doesn't seem like a prudent use of the judicial powers. Oh yeah, SDNY. Now I remember. Yeah, inflating your value in order to get a loan and deflating your value in order to avoid taxes. That is a common developer and, for that matter, real estate owner, pretty much anywhere in the world where you pay taxes and take out loans based on your property. It is a common practice. And most often, if it's egregious enough, it's dealt with via a fine. But if you look at all the things that happened to Trump and his people starting in 2015, none of it was proportional. None of it. In fact, something just came out very recently on Dan Bongino's show today, Technofog, who I need to start following on Substack. I didn't know he had a Substack account. But Technofog, one of Dan Bongino's excellent sources, pulled up an email that says that someone in the Obama administration said that the leak about the investigation into Lieutenant General Flynn and his quote-unquote violation of the Logan Act, that was leaked from either the White House or the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. That's where they were drawing the inference from as to where that came out from. And that was a felony leak, except if it was approved by someone who can approve leaks of such information, which would have meant an FBI director or, say, the chief law enforcement officer of the country, vis-a-vis Obama himself. That would keep it from being a felony leak. Someone also said earlier today that someone has determined that leak was not a federal violation, but Durham is investigating it as a felony violation. So both things can't be true at the same time. So for it to not be a violation, it had to have been approved by someone so high up in the command that they can allow the release of Justice Department information that would normally be kept under lock and key. I hadn't heard about Shaman Guy being related to Pelosi or anyone, Doug. Perhaps he has been. I haven't been following his case all that closely. And Laura says that it was just a rumor to look like. Yeah, okay, a lot of fake info. Thank you, Laura. Laura Weekly in the DLive chat, everyone. Totally on top of things. And then Electric Dog in the DLive chat, my technical producer and king of the links. You wouldn't be able to hear me right now if it wasn't for Dog. Yeah. He has really helped me out with my audio problems. So again, I'm on the page waiting for the Arizona Senate to pop up. They've got technical difficulties. I guess I called it earlier that the person in charge of the meeting, at least the person at one of the people at the top of the dais, was on her phone. So perhaps that was for technical help. So some good news, some really good news. This has been coming out in dribs and drabs over the last few hours. Texas was the first state to report this yesterday, and more have since then, that a number of states are reporting zero COVID deaths. Zero COVID deaths. Texas reported this yesterday, and I've got an article here from Yahoo News themselves, written by Tina Reed from early this morning. And it says here, over the weekend, Texas reported reaching the milestone of 0 deaths from the Chinese Communist Party virus for the first time since March 2020. Arizona, Minnesota, and Massachusetts also reported COVID death-free days for the first time in months. Maryland reported its lowest
in social networks. We also see COVID continuing to spread. So please, if everyone in your social network has not yet been vaccinated, perhaps...
All right, that's certainly not it. That's certainly not it. Obviously, I'm going to have to play with the screen a little bit here. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Hang on. I'm going to split. I don't think you'll notice any difference. You will, actually. You will. I'm going to split off the Fox News feed to a corner. I should say to a sliver. So when I see it pop up live, I'll be able to go to it. I don't want to have to talk over someone from Chicago talking about vaccinations. In fact, my doctors are in Chicago, except for a couple surgeons and my GI guy I have here in Kenosha. And I talked to my primary a few months ago. He's at Northwestern. And he said that if I wanted to get my shot through Northwestern, if I decided to get the vaccine, that I could just not hold my breath because it was all screwed up in Cook County. It was all screwed up. He said they were focusing on, I believe, underserved markets or underserved neighborhoods, something like that was their focus. So I'm like, oh, okay. Now I'm in one category where I'm not at risk. I'm below 65, but I have lung damage from some kind of environmental poisoning or whatever over the last year. or I should say 14 months. So that puts me in the bad category. But one of my other doctors out of Northwestern said, you will get the vaccine. And I'm like, well, I'll look into it. We'll see. But it's not up to me to decide for any of you, of course. That's not my job. If you want it, great. If you don't want it, great. That's your call. It's America. It's America. You can't force anybody to do anything, and if you do, you're going to get sued. It's only right. So continuing with the Yahoo News article about COVID. Other states also posted positive COVID metrics at the top of the week, while COVID deaths in the U.S. fell to their lowest in nearly 14 months. Maryland, again, reported its lowest cases at the end of March of 2020. Virginia, also its lowest rate of new cases since the beginning. It does mention, though, it's important to remember plenty of states are still battling to get their case counts down. Alabama, Colorado, and Michigan have the most cases per capita in the nation. So good news. Certainly in the Neanderthal states. You remember, Texas was referred to by our fearless leader, 46 asterisk, as being a bunch of Neanderthals. Pardon me. No, I'm misquoting him. He was asked about Texas and Georgia releasing their mask mandates, and 46 asterisk replied, "That's Neanderthal thinking." Of course, mispronouncing that because the group of people were Neanderthals, but if you use it as an adjective, it's Neanderthal. So he can't even pronounce the word right. But that's what we've come to expect from him. So who am I to judge? Who am I to judge? Let's take a quick look at the market, see how that's doing. It has closed for the day, and it is red across the board except for gold. Gold actually saw a very slight increase today, up not quite $4 an ounce. It's tickling the $1,870 an ounce mark for the first time in a while. But the Dow Jones again saw a hit today, barely closing above 34,000. And remember, folks, just a few weeks ago, it was at 35,000. And so that is how it's fallen. The S&P 500 fell almost a full percentage, and the NASDAQ again down over 0.5% today. Crude oil also slid at just below $65.50 per barrel of West Texas Intermediate sweet crude. And Bitcoin is still taking it in the teeth. You may have heard that China has banned cryptocurrency. They have decided that they can't regulate it well enough, and other things communist related. So they have banned crypto, and Bitcoin has really, really suffered because of that. I don't follow Ether and all that. If you see something on that, please feel free to put it in the chat. Victoria Monroe says, "Wow, Biden cured us. Who would have known?" Yeah, of course, exactly. We knew it was all going to disappear soon. In fact, Victoria, and I did see your thing about not getting the vaccine. I did see that. Thank you for your concern. But you saw it just, what was it, yesterday or Friday? The CDC came out and said they're no longer going to track PCR tests if the CT is above 29. Which, when before, they were doing cycle thresholds of around 36 to 40. And if you're not familiar with that, a cycle threshold is how often you run the sample through the PCR system, the polymer chain reaction system, and you run it through and amplify the sample until you detect what you're looking for. And before, they were running such high CTs that if you had a cold within the last month, it would show up as a positive CCPV test on some occasions. And certainly, if you had the virus and had gotten over it, it would still show you as positive because you still had a few of those viruses laying around in your system. And everyone was complaining about it. And the CDC, under Trump, refused to do anything. But suddenly, now they'll stop taking CT results equal to or greater than 29. Funny how that happened. I appreciate that, Victoria. I appreciate that. Let's see. Yeah, where is John Durham? I'd love to know. I would love to know where John Durham is. That would be great to hear. I mean, I can't put all my eggs in one basket with Durham, but that's kind of where we're at right now. We really don't have anywhere else to go. We don't have control of any of the committees in Congress. So anytime the Republicans want to get something going, the Democrats shoot it down. Unless, of course, it's a January 6th 9/11 commission, and then boom, it goes right forward. And good afternoon, LB. Nice to see you. No Arizona just yet. They're having technical difficulties. But Durham, of course, was delayed significantly by the shutdowns. Now, you remember D.C. was just basically completely shut down, and so he couldn't get to anybody. All his people were locked up in various areas. So things are unthawing. The last I heard, he had gotten one big cooperating witness, a pretty high-level FBI guy, but I didn't see a name. But that was a while ago. I don't know anything since then. But I take heart in not hearing anything, because unlike the Comey and McCabe FBI and the Eric Holder DOJ, Durham's keeping his people under wraps. I mean, the release of the cooperating witness, that's a strategic move to let people know we're getting somewhere, and maybe you might want to get out in front of this and come in and talk to us before we come and get you. So that's a tactical move. But I would love to hear more. But what I'm hoping is that he doesn't do a thing until everything's ready to go, and then the floodgates are open. But we'll have to see. That's what I'm hoping for. Dr. Pete makes the excellent call, but I don't know if I can read that on YouTube. But that is correct. That is correct. Victoria, that I do know that's true about the wild strand of COVID killing the animals. I do know that's true regarding that group of what was it, minks in where was it? Was it the Netherlands or Norway? There was the whole mink population was destroyed because COVID had run rampant through it. That was last year, though. I don't remember that any more than that. Michael Osmond is right there with me when it comes to Durham and the legitimacy vis-a-vis leaks. Excellent. So we're right on the same page there. All right, I wish I could give you what I promised we would have, folks. But again, Arizona is not broadcasting at the moment. If anyone has a fee, oh wait, here we are. We're up now.
Custody between when the ballots or boxes in the ballots, boxes with ballots in them, started to be filed away in their warehouse between the election and April 22nd is kind of the questions that we still haven't seen any chain of custody documentation. There was a pretty famous tweet with a picture of 8 or 10 pallets that seemed to be loaded in the back of a truck that was tweeted out shortly after I think the court decided that your subpoenas were legitimate, and it seemed to be tweeted out by the chairman of the Board of Supervisors saying that we have these ballots ready to deliver. We would have liked to and still would like to see the chain of custody documents between November and April to see if that type of an event is on those chain of custody documents, but it's the chain of custody between November and April that we haven't received.
Just to that point, Madam President, Mr. Bennett. So the President had a question about chain of custody. The question was, or I guess the question was from what was the chain of custody from November to April 21st, and the county has still not provided that chain of custody. Is that correct, during that window?
That's correct. The chain of custody documentation that I still possess, and the county possesses a copy as well, is what happened when they transferred machines and ballots to us on April 21st and 22nd. We don't have any chain of custody documentation prior to that.
There was, and this is the capacity I'm asking you as a past Secretary of State and somebody that's been involved with elections for a lot of years. Can you answer for me, we have 15 counties in Arizona. Does all 15 county recorders, do we have set laws that outline the chain of custody? So do all 15 counties handle the ballots exactly the same way? Do they package them, unpackage them the same way? Is there any standard procedures?
Well, there are state statutes in ARS 16, and ballot handling issues and chain of custody issues are in state statute. There's also an election procedures manual that is adopted every other year on the off election year by the Secretary of State's office. During my 6 years as Secretary of State, I oversaw the development of 3 of those election procedures manual. Those also speak to general requirements for how to handle ballots, how to document chain of.
I don't know where the sound went. Oh, it froze. Okay, their feed froze.
All right, folks, we are working to get that feedback. You could see we are going to take another 2-minute break here on News Now from Fox.
All right, so still with the technical difficulties. Let me just...
In Pima County or something, they would find other procedures because we're not all doing the same exact thing in each county. So, which is why it's important for us to figure out
Correct.
what this county's procedures are so we can help each other out on this one.
As you can see, we got the audio there back. It looks like we're going to have maybe some issues going forward every now and then. Just stay with us.
Count, once Mr. Bennett says that he has checked them all in, along with Mr. Jarrett, and we receive them there, we'll get into the security issues, the procedures in a little bit, but let's stay on target with the equipment and the ballots. Wait, let me back up a second. Let's talk about equipment a second. You relayed in the concerns that you had that I relayed to Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, there were questions about the routers that we were supposed to, from our subpoena, we were going to get things. You had mentioned to me before I did this letter of a concern that we were supposed to get some equipment and we didn't get it. Could you explain that to us, please?
A little over a week before the machines were to be delivered, I was having questions with Mr. LaRue, the Assistant County Attorney, as to how they were going to handle the routers that were part of the subpoenas and the other hubs and related internet connectivity equipment, if that's the term. I'm not sure it is, but I'll call it that. And about a week before the machines were to be delivered, I called Mr. LaRue and offered that we could have the contractor that would be looking at the routers actually come to McTech and look at the routers while they were still installed and in place in McTech so that nothing had to be removed or disturbed. He called me back the next day and said that they had removed all of the equipment and that they had replaced it at great expense to the county, and that all of that would be on a pallet delivered with the rest of the equipment on what turned out to be April 21st. When the 21st arrived, and I couldn't see or identify that pallet of internet equipment or routers or hubs or whatever, I asked him where they were, and he said that they had decided not to do it that way, that they were still back in the building, and that they would provide us virtual access was the term that he used. I believe these two gentlemen were standing nearby me when that happened. And so we were told that instead of receiving that equipment, we would receive virtual access. That continued to be their position for more than 2 weeks. And when we finally pushed on when are we going to get virtual access, then they eventually came back and said that the routers in McTech are somehow connected to the Sheriff's Department and other county departments, and that if they gave them to us or even gave us virtual access, that Social Security numbers would be at risk and county health records, and so they have now refused to give us even virtual access.
So, Madam President, if I may, I think this is a really important issue because one of the things that we need to complete this audit is the routers. You asked for the routers. The county has said that we would get the routers. We've just heard testimony that they had already disconnected them and they were sending them over. Then they showed up and said and then they showed up and said that the routers would be provided, you'd be provided virtual access to the routers. And Mr. Bennett, you said that was actually in person and these two gentlemen were present?
Yes.
Mr. Logan, were you present when the county said they would provide virtual access?
Yes, sir. And they also said they'd give us Splunk logs as well, so detailed logs of all the network activity.
Okay, and Mr. Cotton, were you present when the county said they would provide virtual access?
I was.
Okay.
Question, did you receive those Splunk logs that they promised? No? Okay, sorry, go ahead, Senator Beeson.
So Madam President, I just think it's really important that we put that on the record, that we were told that we'd get them, even heard that they were, it sounds like, possibly a misunderstanding, if we give them the benefit of the doubt, is a misunderstanding that they were already disconnected and ready to send. And then ultimately, at some point, it changed to, we're not going to give them to you because of security issues. And so my question with that would be, we've got cybersecurity people here. What was offered so that we could, what's offered so that we can deal with these security concerns with us looking at the routers? And I guess we'll start with Mr. Logan on that.
So the Splunk logs, if we had the complete Splunk logs, would be something that would be very useful in order to look through things. But I'm actually going to defer to Mr. Cotton on this because this is his expertise of what he'd look at.
All right. Yeah, Mr. Cotton, if you could, what can we, help us understand how we could look at the routers and this could be a secure process?
So first of all, if I could explain kind of the function of a router in layman's terms. So if you think of a packet of data as an envelope in the U.S. postal system, the router is essentially the carrier that delivers that envelope to the right mailbox. Okay, you've got a originating address, you've got a destination address. The data is contained in a packet, and the router typically does not record any of that information inside of the packet. It simply delivers that envelope to the proper mailbox that it's destined for. The twofold. So the first point of concern / confusion is the assertion that PII data and Maricopa County resident data would be compromised by examining the router. That data should not exist on that router, period. So to state that it could be compromised would be an inaccurate statement or an inaccurate portrayal of what the data is on the router. The second piece on this that is concerning to me is that there have been public reports by ProVNV, there have been statements by the county saying that these election systems don't actually touch the internet. Therefore, the extension of that would be that they do not touch the county network because that's exposed to the internet. And to say that the data corresponding to these networks would somehow compromise law enforcement activity or PII data seems incongruous to the previous statements. Okay, and if you take the letter which states these compromises would occur at face value, then de facto that means that the election data had to be exposed to the internet, which I don't know if it's the case or not. But that's certainly something that we need to explore, given the inconsistencies in these public statements and reports that they have presented. The actual fact is that after they shut down the provisioning of us with this data, there have been no other offers for us to get access to the data, to review the data, or otherwise obtain that data.
So, Madam President, if I may, Mr. Cotton, Have you, what kind of experience do you have accessing confidential or top secret data?
So we routinely work for some of the largest companies in the world with incident response breaches, with forensics matters, and we are entrusted with that data, and we have never had an exposure, a leak, or any type of data being emitted from our custody. I also have personal experience at the highest levels of government supporting agencies in which security clearances are required.
So, Madam President, Mr. Cotton, are you confident that you could look at the routers without risking any security concerns or breaches to the county?
Yes.
Thank you. So let's go back to the chain of custody, the process and the issues. Let's go to Mr. Logan at this point. So Mr. Bennett has testified as to the equipment and the ballots coming in and up to that point. Now, from there, this is where you guys step in and you start actually doing the processing. Tell us what the list that you sent to me, which I included in the letter to Maricopa County asking for some explanations. Could you please explain to us what your concerns are, or what have you found, and why we're looking for these questions, these answers to these questions?
Sure. So in the boxes, there have early voting transmittal sheets that give the counts that are supposed to be within a given box. And specifically, the county's response stated that the reason why the number that we counted did not match what was expected was because of duplicates. Now, duplicate ballots occur when a voting machine can't process a ballot. That could be because it's got a coffee stain on it and they don't think it's going to run through it. It could be because the ballot is damaged, or it could be any other reason that wouldn't run through it. But part of their explanation is that the sheets, specifically it was related to the duplicates, but if we look at the specific example they have, there's actually a bottom part of the sheet right here where if anything is sent over to duplication, it's supposed to be filled out. So I'm looking at specifically the one that they had pulled out, which was, I think it was bin number 197, so it's tray number 2104. And if you take a look at the sheet, you'll notice that there's nothing down here. They said there was 2 or 3 that were duplicates, but there's nothing listed as duplicates. If instead we took a look at tray number 6359, you'll notice that there's 3 that are duplicates. So while the count in here, we'd expect it to be 3 lower than what their total count was because they're taken out for duplicates. For the example that they gave us, there's nothing listed. And so our understanding, if this form is filled out properly, the duplicates should be referenced in here, and we're not finding that be the case. And our numbers across the board showed that. We took into account duplicates in the information that we gave, and it wasn't explained. So I'm still uncertain as to why these boxes are off and these sheets do not match the reality of what we're running into.
And for the record, those are included as exhibits in the letter that we sent to the supervisors asking them, could you help us understand why the rest of these sheets aren't filled out, and why they're not indicating where there may have been duplicates. And for the record, can you also explain what is a duplicate? Why would we ever need a duplicate ballot?
Okay, so yes, I can say that we gave those examples. We specifically want to give examples. Those are not the only boxes that we've run into this way, or only batches we've run into it. We wanted to make sure that we gave some specifics so that they could look back to the records and tell us what actually happened there. Duplicates, as was mentioned a little bit earlier, are because a ballot cannot run through a tabulated system, whether that's because it's damaged or whether the machine just won't actually handle it. So when that's the case, they take the ballot, they create a duplicate of it. That duplicate is then run through the system in order to do the counting, and the duplicates are all put together as the originals for what the duplicate was based off of.
Okay.
Madam President, this comes right out of ARS 16621, which says, if any ballot, including any ballot received from early voting, is damaged or defective so that it cannot properly be counted by the automatic tabulating equipment, a true duplicate copy shall be made of the damaged or defective ballot in the presence of witnesses and substituted for the damaged or defective ballot. Also says, all duplicate ballots created pursuant to this subsection shall be clearly labeled duplicate and shall bear a serial number that shall be recorded on the damaged or defective ballot. We started into our first boxes of ballots that were damaged and had to be sent to duplication. There's some other situations, for example, Braille ballots. I looked at a box of Braille ballots the other day, and a Braille ballot is about the size of a cookbook, and it's got a big plastic ring thing on the side, and it's about an inch thick, and that has to be determined what were the votes in that, and those votes have to be reflected on a duplicate ballot. As we were going through some of the early boxes marked as original or damaged ballots sent to duplication, we then went to boxes marked duplicate ballots, and we are finding a 6-digit unique identifier, serial number, it says in 16621, on the duplicate ballots, but we're not finding a corresponding serial number on the original ballot that was damaged or otherwise had to be duplicated. In fact, I was so surprised that I brought the two observers from the Secretary of State's office over, along with some other volunteer observers from various parties, just to kind of document that we're running into batch after batch after batch of ballots sent to duplication, but there's no unique serial number or identification number on the ballot that had to be duplicated that should correspond with a ballot over in the has been duplicated box, because those should match up one for one, and obviously they should add up to the total number of ballots as a whole, but you literally should be able to say, here's the damaged ballot, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and here's the duplicated ballot, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and anyone should be able to audit and say, yes, we can see that the votes off of the damaged ballot that the machine couldn't read have been correctly, or I think it says truly, a true duplicate copy shall be made. And so it's we are struggling as to how we're going to be able to match up ballots sent to be duplicated with the ballots that were duplicated if one of those, the originals, are missing that 6-digit number. The county probably in the next few days as we begin to resume the counting. But this is one of the questions related to duplicate ballots that we just discovered a few days ago, and we're struggling as to how we're going to be able to match the originals to the duplicates if the originals don't have the same serial number as required by 16621 as the duplicate ballot does.
Wow.
Mr. Logan, part of the list that you had given me that I had put in a letter to ask the supervisors about, we were talking about the ballots, how they are stored in a box. Are they taped with security tape that shows that do not break the seal sort of stuff that we see on crime scenes, or how the ballots are supposed to be stored inside those boxes? Can either of you help explain what we think it's supposed to be? What did you find? Help me out with that, please.
So we were expecting to find the ballots within bags and sealed within those bags. But I think the county gave a pretty good explanation as to the process of archiving things. They removed those and stacked them all together. That was a great answer that helped clarify how they do it specifically in Maricopa County.
Okay. Mr. Bennett, are we supposed to be putting them in bags or not? I'm asking because if we are going to be looking at what we can do to improve election integrity for all of Arizona, is that something that we should be pursuing? Should they be kept in bags, or is it okay just to put them in boxes?
Well, state statute says that they are sealed when they are moved from a voting center to central count, that they are supposed to be in sealed bags with a numbered seal. And it appears as though that was happening, because one of the things that we're finding in the bottom of these boxes underneath all the ballots is some of these cut plastic seals that have unique numbers on them, and they are probably the seals from the bags of ballots that were transported from a voting center to a central counting location. So I don't think there's anything wrong with the way Maricopa is doing it, but getting an explanation has been helpful to the auditor. And what we are finding is that sometimes these early voting report sheets are at the top of a batch of ballots. The numbers don't always add up as to what the sheet says we should find below that one until we get to the next one. But we're also finding boxes where the only divider between batches of ballots is just a blank piece of paper with 2 digits written on it. And those 2 numbers don't seem to correspond to batch numbers, which are usually many more digits than that. And so we may be discovering the fact that we could do a better job of delineating the batches within boxes so that, frankly, if you were to audit an election, one of the things that you might want to do is compare the count of votes within a batch to kind of a subtotal from a batch subtotal report that the election management system produces as the ballots are counted in batches. But without a clear identifier as to, what's the identity of this batch of 200 ballots, or 198 if a couple have been sent to duplication or whatever. Sometimes we're just finding blank pieces of paper with a number or 2 scribbled on it as the delineation.
Right there with you, Numi's dad. Right there with you. That's their pause, by the way.
All right, we are going to see if we could refresh that here for you right here on News Now from Fox. You see this goes a little bit in and out sometimes. We're working to get it, and we got it.
It's not all consistent. Every single box is not put together the same way. Some of the boxes, we have ballots stuffed along the side to fill up the box even more. Other boxes don't. So there's differences in the number of ballots that are in it. There's difference in the way they're laid out. And that makes it very difficult to match up batches. So exactly whether a bag is the best answer or there's some other way, we absolutely should be able to open up a box and know for sure that this stack of ballots is associated with a specific batch.
So the purpose, I believe statute, Mr. Bennett, remind me, I believe statute says that we are required to keep ballots for 22 months
Yes.
before they are destroyed, and the reason for that is why?
Well, if there were a question that a court of competent jurisdiction were to order that ballots be opened and recounted or whatever, then you may be recounting ballots for a race in a particular precinct or a city or a board of supervisor district. And eventually, either through the ballots themselves, but probably more likely through the images of the ballots that are taken by the election management system, you would need to be able to eventually sort those ballots down to the precinct level to say, were all of the votes in a particular precinct or in a school district or a city council race or whatever correctly recorded by the election management system. So it doesn't happen often that a court would order ballot boxes to be opened during that 22-month retention period. But if there was a question, it would be for that reason.
So it would make it easier in the future, perhaps. Okay, if we have nothing else, anybody have anything to add as to the chain of custody issues? If not, I'll turn it over.
Well, I guess I would,
Yes,
Madam Chair.
Mr. Bennett.
There's also a chain of custody on the floor of the audit as to, once we received the ballots, they went into locked cages. They're under 24-hour security, and I know we're going to get into some security issues in that, but when a box of ballots is needed at a counting table, there are at least 2 people at all times, sometimes 3 or 4, in what are called the corrals. They are the corral managers, and there's runners that deliver ballots from the corrals to the counting tables. There's a table manager at each table. There's a pod manager that oversees 6 to 12 tables.
Yep.
But when a box of ballots is needed out on the floor for counting or paper evaluation, one of the corral managers has to sign a document, a chain of custody document, for that specific box, and the runner also signs. So there's 2 people signing every time that a box moves somewhere. When that box arrives at the table, now the runner and the table manager are signing for that box as to the chain of custody. When they're finished with it at the table, doing whatever they do, the runner comes back to get it. The table manager and the runner again sign for that chain of custody to go back to the corral. And when the runner goes back to the corral, again, it's two people, the corral manager and the runner signing that that box is now back in the corral. So there's potentially 8 different people. Well, the table manager is probably the same person. So, but there's 8 different signatures for a box to move from the corral to the table and back. Is that correct?
That sounds right.
Great, thank you. Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Madam President. Got a few questions for Mr. Cotton. I want to, we asked you about your qualifications earlier, but I just had a couple of extra questions on your professional background I want to ask because I thought this was important for your qualifications. Have you been admitted as an expert witness in legal proceedings with respect to your computer forensics?
I have.
Have you testified before the U.S. Congress with respect to the Office of Personal Management breach of 2015?
I have. I believe it was on 3 separate occasions.
I want to go to the passwords, and I want to ask you some questions about that. What level of passwords and access did the county provide you to the Dominion tabulators?
So the county initially provided us a security key and poll worker access to the systems. Now, with the poll level access, you can open a tabulator, you can open an election, and you can close an election. The challenge there is that what my purview is to actually determine the configuration of that tabulator. We know, for example, that there are 2, what they call...
And what do you need to get the...
That requires a separate access at either the administrator or the technician level. Yeah. And we know, for example, that there are 2 RJ45 network connectors on these tabulators. We don't know what those configurations are. We don't know if there is a card internal to the system that might be a Verizon wireless card. We know those tabulators of that model certainly have that capability, but we don't know what the configuration is for the Maricopa County tabulators.
Okay. Who controls, possesses, or has access to the administrative and technician passwords for the tabulators that you need to look at these configurations?
So in the course of communications with the county officials, it was disclosed to us that the Maricopa County officials apparently do not have access at the administrative or technician level for their own tabulating systems. That level of access and those credentials are maintained in the sole possession of 2 Dominion employees that are apparently full-time contractors within the Maricopa County infrastructure.
So, on a practical sense, what are the implications of that only Dominion employees have access to the admin portion and the county does not?
Well, from a cybersecurity standpoint, once again, there's a difference between what is being said in public statements and representations with what the county can actually validate or verify is there on the tabulating systems. So, for example, we have a report from Pro V&V that the tabulators did not touch the internet. Okay. The county, however, cannot validate or verify that there were or were not Verizon wireless cards inside of those tabulators, which would have, by definition, touched the internet. So, the biggest challenge there is, one, it doesn't appear that they have control of their own equipment when it comes to configuring and preparing for an election. And 2, they can't validate that their own policies and procedures are being carried out without the ability to validate the configurations of the systems.
I want to talk to you or ask you about the deleted database. And we're trying to, again, the president sent a letter with questions, there's a response, and we're trying to, there's lots of gaps and holes and really just misinformation on the responses. So I'm trying to get to the bottom of some of these things. The deleted database directory, in the course of your analysis of the EMS server, did you determine that the D database directory had been deleted?
I did, and if I could add a little bit of color behind that. So we follow a very strict forensics acquisition process in which we don't turn on a system if it's delivered to us in a powered off state. We remove the hard drives, we perform forensics imaging with write blocks to prevent any changes to those hard drives, and we produce a bit-for-bit forensics copy of that particular drive. In the case of the EMS server, there were actually 6 drives. 2 of those drives were for the operating system, and they were in what we call a mirror configuration. So if something was changed anywhere on the operating system drive, that would automatically be reflected on both drives. The other 4 drives were data drives, and it turns out that they were in a RAID configuration known as 1+0. So in other words, you have a volume that is not only mirrored, but it's also data redundancy and striped across both drives as well. Obviously, if I don't turn on a system, I don't have access to the RAID parameters, and the county did not provide those to us. So I had to do a discovery process to determine what that RAID configuration was. Part of that process is a scan across those drives to detect partitions of data and to also detect what we call a master file table. So a master file table, very simply put, is a record of all of the directories and the files that are contained in that partition, and a pointing and a pointer to where that data resides on the hard drive. In the course of performing that MFT discovery, I discovered a MFT that clearly indicated that the database directory was deleted from that server. So all of this, however, may be a moot point because subsequently I've been able to recover all of those deleted files and I have access to that data.
So with that being said, do you still need to get that database from the county, or did that rebuilding or recovery that you did, does that have the information you currently need for that database?
I have the information I need from the recovery efforts of the data.
Okay. Well, I think that's some good news, Madam President.
Yes.
I want to talk about, there were some things that have been brought up. We heard something early on, very early into the audit, something about blue pins. And Mr. Bennett, can you kind of tell us what happened with the blue pin situation? Did that create any kind of a risk to the audit?
I wasn't on the floor. I'd defer to Mr.
Sorry, there's nothing academic about critical theory. I'm sorry. You can argue that point all you want. He ain't going to get anywhere in this chat. Critical theory has no science behind it whatsoever. It's pure Marxism based on race pitting themselves against race.
We
I'm sorry, that's all there is to it.
pens off of the floor. All of them were off the floor before there were any ballots out being counted. It was all done within about 5-6 minutes of being told. So we had an observer who identified a problem, and we immediately rectified the situation.
Okay. So there was never, the ballots were never on the floor with any blue pins?
Correct.
I guess is a question that there was some confusion on that. I want to ask about ballot security. There was, early on, some question about ballot security. Tell me about how the ballots have been protected and secured through this whole process. And I don't know if that's a Ken question or a Doug question.
Okay. Immediately upon receiving the machines on the 21st of April and the ballots on the 22nd, Those pallets and equipment were taken into locked cages, and I think there's only 2 people who have keys to that, and I'm not one of those 2. Although as questions have arisen on certain boxes related to the duplicated ballots, or we found some counter slips in one of the boxes in between a bunch of ballots that did have some voter names and addresses on them, and for reasons of security, I was called and we took those out of the ballot box and created a new box. So we now have 1,682 boxes, so that we have secured those. There was about 1,000 pages, but we have secured both the equipment and the ballots behind locked cages. They have 24/7 live video streaming. There's armed security guards present over the ballots and the equipment since they have been delivered. We have not had any breaches of the cages where the ballots or the machines have been kept. In addition to armed security on the floor where the machines and the ballots are, we have armed security at the doors of the building, and we have armed security at outer areas of the fairgrounds property where you don't get close to the building unless your name is on a list of needing to be there for the right reasons. And interestingly, the only attempted breach of security was an individual who posed themselves as a member of the press when Mr. Logan and myself and Mr. Brakey had I guess a briefing on the floor showing how ballots would go around the counting tables and things like that, and an individual, Ryan Macias, presented himself as a member of the press, but when he couldn't produce press credentials, he was denied access. He later, on a different day, tried to present himself as a member of the press at one of the outer security points. But then a few days later, he ended up being one of the people designated by the Secretary of State's office as one of their observers. So once he was designated as an observer from the Secretary of State's office, he has been allowed on the floor as an observer. But that's the only security breach that I'm aware of. No one else has had it. No one who didn't have need to be having access to the machines or the ballots have been in the ballot corrals or the locked security cages holding the machines.
Okay. Is there other questions I have for now, Madam President?
Thank you. I was going to go down, just add on to that. So when we're talking about the security, Mr. Bennett, you talked about the officers, you've talked about the situations there. Talk to us about, and the reason why I know this is because when we entered the contract, you had told me what your plans were, and I've actually been watching this on live stream. Can you please explain the security as to the filming and the live streaming and everything else there, as to what is being, how is that being watched, when is it, who's it being watched by, and for what purposes are we doing the different levels of filming and live streaming?
Sure. So the entire room where the counting takes place and the entire area where the forensics data acquisition took place are all covered and live streamed 24/7. Those are being viewed, as far as we know, across the world by thousands of individuals. We get reports at times of things that people are seeing, that most of are suspicious situations that when we look at the end of it, there was actually no problem. It was all intended. In addition to the live streaming cameras that we also have what I call our accountability cameras, where over every single counting table we have a camera that aims straight down at the table to see who's there, to see what's going on at the table, and we have one that catches the ballot as it goes around. So that if our process, because we have 3 individuals who are counting at one time, it would be impossible for one individual to try to change any of the vote tallies. And by having, it would take 2 or more people in order to clue to even get any type of change in things. And the nature of the way the cameras are is there'd be a full digital trail of who that person was, what was going on, and all of that goes into our cameras. So as I think one of the best examples we have is we had an individual who we were told there was a USB that had been plugged into a computer, and people were concerned, and we got some message from someone about this, and within about 15 minutes of that occurrence happening, we were able to go to our video streams, pull up the video footage, find out exactly who it was. It was someone on our IT team that was designated by the fact they were in a black shirt, which is, we have everyone in outfits based on roles. They were doing an update on one of the computers that had to be done via USB because it's an air-gapped system, so there's no way to connect out to the outside network. So within about 35 minutes of it being identified, we were able to hone in on who it was and confirm that, in fact, it was an expected person doing their job duties.
Thank you. Okay, let's ask a question about, obviously at the beginning, I explained why we're 6 months down the road from when the election first happened, and we've explained why, you've explained why why your audit is different than the other ones. We had expected, which was out there in the media, we had expected that, and according to our contract, to be honest with you, that this would be done before the Coliseum needed it again. I know that some of the delays have been because of outside forces and everything we described, but can you give us some more insight about, you know, where you're at now? Why have we not gotten a little bit further? And where do we go from here? When can we complete this? When can we button this up? And because a lot of people are wanting to know what these results are.
So we're expecting to finish the counting process before the end of June. We have had a number of technical issues that we ran through over the course of everything that's required some adjustments and bringing in a whole bunch of more people to make the counting happen. We've made those adjustments. We have a great process in place, and we're expected to be well within that timeline.
Okay. Anything you want to add to that?
No, Madam President, I really appreciate you guys being here. Again, I wish the county would have been here because I'm sure that there were questions that there's unanswered questions or maybe more explanation. I just want to, and I know you said this, Madam President, I'm not putting words in your mouth. We want to work together with them. We want to be partners, and we don't need to do any name calling. We just need communication. We need to answer questions. I think 95% of the stuff so far has just been a matter of communication. Somebody needs to know why it is the way it is. 5% of it, though, I think is stuff where, you know what, maybe the legislature needs to implement some laws to make the process more secure. And make sure that the process runs smoother. And that's really what we're, the biggest thing we're trying to accomplish here is making sure that this is a process that our citizens can trust and that they can count on.
Is there anything that, I'm trying to go by all those questions that you guys gave me, which is what I passed to Maricopa County to get those answers. Did I miss anything? Are there more questions that, I know Mr. Bennett said that he was going to keep going with his list of questions to see if you could help, maybe Mr. Barrett or Mr. Jarrett, or somebody might be able to at least offer a twig of kindness and give us some answers.
Well,
but did we miss anything else, or is there something else that I need to ask of you or you need to ask of us?
I think one thing I do want to specifically clarify, it's been brought up a number of times that this password that we need for the tabulators somehow gives access to the source code. It does not give access to the source code. Source code is what the programmer writes, which gets turned into a program. And then that program is what is actually deployed in any given system. There's some miscommunication or misunderstanding to think that this password would give access to any source code. And so hopefully that can help alleviate some concerns and get what we need in order to finish this audit.
Okay, that was helpful. Mr. Bennett, Mr. Cotton, anything you want
One
to
thing I
add?
would add is that should we receive those passwords for the tabulators, that for us to collect that data is probably a matter of less than 2 days that we need to continue with for our analysis.
Okay, that would be very, very helpful. Okay. So not to belabor this, go on, I know this is live stream, people have things to go in their lives, so I would like to continue to get, I know we're in a hiatus this week because of the graduations that are going in. Speaking of that, can you tell me where the ballots are right now? Where's the equipment? If it's not on the floor of the Coliseum, Mr. Bennett?
Yes, the machines and the ballots were loaded into locked trailers and moved to a building elsewhere on the premises of the Arizona State Fairgrounds. They are also being live streamed 24/7 by video camera. They also are being watched 24/7 by armed security, both inside and outside the building. And there may be one opportunity yet, maybe today, when we need to put some hard drives that have been being copied over the weekend back into one of the trucks, but they are under guarded security as well, and everything has been smooth as far as moving the ballots over to that other building. They're in locked trailers. The air conditioning or swamp coolers have been on, so there's no risk of physical damage from heat or otherwise to the ballots or the machines. And it was all done under observation by the Secretary of State observers. And when the building is finished with the graduations and they've had time to clean up the building, which I think will probably be Friday or Saturday of this weekend, we'll move back and be ready to go Monday.
Great. That's Mr. Peterson?
Yeah, just a closing comment, Madam, or I don't know if you're done, but closing comment for me would just be that, Madam President, this is the first forensic audit done on this scale in the history of this country.
That's true.
It's, I just want to commend the contractors for, in spite of the intense opposition and intense efforts to shut this down, not only do we have 24-hour security, we have 24-hour efforts to shut down the audit. And they have done a great job, I think, of adjusting and setting up. And I think it's will set a precedence and help people learn from here's things that were encountered and here's what needs to be done. So when the next forensic audit is done, it will be a completely smooth process from start to finish. But they are now, moving into a rhythm here, and I look forward to this being completed over the next weeks.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And, when we did all this research, I got a hold of, and you did as well, the Federal Elections Commission, and asked them, could you refer us to some forensic auditors? And they go, there aren't certified, and they said there really aren't any because there are none. I did find one company that works for Homeland Security, and their price was about $8 million to do this. But this is a whole new breaking ground. I've had other senators and Senate presidents and speakers from other states that have contacted me that said this is an issue that they are struggling with as well to make sure, and they have said this is what's going to lay the groundwork as to what is the future of how do we audit our elections if need be? What do we do to make sure that we're following every best practices possible so that if we do need to answer questions, we can do that easily and put the confidence back into our voter integrity, our elections. So the only thing I'm closing with here is, obviously keep us in the loop. We will keep reaching out to you to make sure that you have everything necessary. And, and as questions are brought to us, that we're going to come to you and say we need an explanation for this or that or whatever. This is not about, this is not personal, never should be personal. I'm so disappointed and saddened that the Board of Supervisors yesterday, some of the hurtful comments that were made, which is sad. These guys have been my friends for some of them 20 years. This is not personal. This is about our jobs as elected officials. It is our jobs that we have to answer to our constituents, to the voters, to the taxpayers. There was something that was said that was very hurtful about how the Senate is wasting taxpayer monies on this. First of all, I don't think that there is ever any waste of money if we are ensuring that our elections are good, our police forces are good, departments are being run efficiently. That's part of government. This is what accountability is all about. And I'm only saddened that it's cost us more taxpayer monies because we never wanted the ballots and the equipment moved from McTech to begin with. We said, let us go there. Let us do this together. And instead, we have had to spend so much of taxpayer monies now of having to actually rent the Coliseum out, set up all the security system that you explained to us and the cost of that and all the security officers we've had to hire. It just, it's a sad that we've had to spend all that extra money when we could have done it for much less had we just worked together as a team. But I am hopeful that maybe from here on out they will want to be a part of this and help us make sure that all elections in Arizona are done right, done correctly, and we look forward to working with them. So if there is nothing else, I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you.
All right, folks, we have reached the end of it. I realized that we were all paying attention to the chat and the hearing. Let me just put up here real quickly. This is a promo for my news rodeo. It's every Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern. I do the first hour on YouTube. It's a 2-hour show. And then the second hour is only on DLive and Trovo because YouTube is such a censorious mother effer that I can't say a lot of things. So I do all that on Trovo and DLive. You can see the URLs there on the screen. They also have apps for both Android and iPhones. Again, it's either Trovo or DLive. Both have very robust chat systems. They're excellent apps as far as utility goes. And they do not spam you with mail. Trust me, I've been on DLive for years, and I've been on Trovo since earlier this year. They're great systems. Again, I would love to be able to do the whole show on YouTube, but I can't. They demonetized me last month for no real reason. And since then, I've only done the show half there and the whole show on the other two. I want to thank, though, everyone who came. This is my most successful live stream ever. I did not expect anywhere near these kind of numbers. And the chat has been incredible. And I will even extend a fig leaf to Caleb Bad Faith. I do not understand how you can say that minorities were not getting anything out of having the greatest job numbers in history and had the most the highest raises in their wages in real numbers, the highest raises in their wages ever in the 2.5 years under the Trump tax cuts ever. The bottom quarter of the pay scale under Trump got more gains than the top 1%. That is a proven fact. Go to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, look it up. It's an actual fact. And if you can't get that through your head, then you're going to have to try and do Common Core new math or something. I don't know. Anyway, folks, so it's been great. So please consider the news bureau. And if you're a gamer, every Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern, and every Saturday and Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern, I stream PC games. I'm currently in the middle of The Witcher 3. Just got to Skellige, if you're familiar, and we're having a lot of fun. But I can't thank everyone enough. And of course, the DLive chat was terrific as always. Laura, Thumper, all you guys, so great to see you. So great to see you. But I'm going to go ahead and cut it here. Well, we had to exchange slight increase in wages. Slight increase. It was the highest percentage in over 15 years. Slight increase? Dude, if you're going to argue, at least argue in good faith. And if you want to talk about adding to the deficit, how about the $2 trillion that's already been added and the $6 trillion more that's coming down the pipe, not including the new $4 trillion budget that 46 Asterisk is putting out there right now. That $2 trillion, by the way, a big part of that was building the military up that Obama and Biden cratered with sequestration during their term. We had no ammunition by the time Trump took office. So, yeah, we had to spend a little money. I'm not happy that we spent all it. I'm not happy with that at all. But, you got to, you're going to have to get some numbers in your head there, dude. You're going to have to get some numbers in your head. All right, folks. I'm going to call it. Time for, it's not even dinner time yet. I'm going to do that. But I will let all you good people be. But, again, thank you all so much for being here. And maybe I'll see you again. maybe I'll see you again. But keep an eye out. The next decent election stream that I see coming down the pipe, I'll do. And of course, I'm always open to suggestions. So leave something in one of our news rodeo chats. All right, folks, I will let you go. Bye-bye.